Ladies and gentlemen, happy Family Day. Happy Family Day to all you. National Family Day, National Forgiveness Day. It's a lovely day, a fantastic Sunday, my best Sunday yet. I finished second for $30,000, won a little bit more than that last night on the Showdown slate. As a Packers fan, if Mason Crosby misses the kick, I win $71,000. He makes it, I only win $30,000, but they get the win. An exciting finish. Aaron Rodgers has still got it. He ain't not caring about no football. But a part of me, and really a big part of me, the majority of me said Mason missed this kick. 1-2 for the Packers isn't a great start, but $30-something thousand is definitely worth a loss. But hey, I'm here. I'm revitalized. The Patreons were knocking him down yesterday left and right. The wins and the greens and the money coming in everywhere, not just on DraftKings, but on Prize Picks, but on SuperDraft. We're dominating everywhere right now, and it feels good 3 weeks into the season. We got a new camera, a new lens, and we're going to take a look at what should be a good, I have the Eagles plus 4.5, but what should be a good game in the division tonight between the Eagles and the Cowboys. And this is an interesting showdown slate. Hey, listen up here. You're going to have to pay close attention. There is not much value on the showdown slate. Kickers and defenses have not really been on the slate for me in really any of these games where I'm like, yeah, I got to play that guy. But for the most part, tonight, you're probably going to see one in an optimal lineup just because there's not much value out there. So let's get into this. Let's break it down position by position as we always do. And hey, if you got 2 seconds of your time to hit the follow button, the subscribe button as it pops up right now, I appreciate that. Let's get into it. So this is an interesting slate because normally I project out, like for fantasy points wise on Patreon, you can check it out down below, projections, ownership, the optimizer, all that, and even more for tonight. But I project out normally, like around 28, 29, sometimes 30 players. And sometimes I'm projecting them out for like a half a fantasy point because they run some routes. Tonight, I only have 21 players projected out. You can make a case there should be 22 with Richard Rodgers, but 21 players projected out. That's how tight both of these teams play. They both play with basically 3 receivers. They both play with 2 running backs definitely involved, but not a third running back. They don't really play with a fullback like you saw from the 49ers last night, and they really just each run out there 2 tight ends, and that's it. Like, they have a core of players, so you're going to get, with the kickers and defenses, like 10 guys in play for each team, when some teams will have 12 to 13 to 14 because they use a fullback. They use 4 to 5 wide receivers, and maybe not use them heavily, but they run 10 routes and see a target or 2, so I at least project them out. And tonight, it's not like that, and it leaves us with a lack of value. So, Dak Prescott up top and Jalen Hurts. The quarterbacks are definitely in play for me today. Dak Prescott will have a solid pass blocking advantage. Now, the Eagles are top 10 so far in pass rush, but they did lose Graham in that last game. He's done for the year, and that takes into account week 1 in a small sample where the Cowboys had to face Tampa Bay without Zach Martin. They still don't have La'el Collins, but number 15 overall, probably closer to a top 10 unit. Now, Dak last week was terrible, no touchdowns, and he had less than 300 yards after having the great week 1 to open it up. He only has 1 rushing attempt for 13 yards. His prop right now sits at like 12 yards in most spots. I'm not touching it as of right now. He didn't have any rushing yards last week, but I do have Dak Prescott projected as my highest projected player right now. And even when I factor in like the value, obviously he's expensive at $11,200, but even when I factor in the value, meaning the point per dollar, like the bang for your buck here, Dak is my number 4 bang for your buck play. And if we're not counting like the dust dart throw you're going to put in on Noah Brown potentially today, Dak is my number 3 projected value player. So the quarterbacks are firmly in play. When there's a lack of value, it's hard to get to these guys, and it's really more so hard to get them in the captain spot, but firmly in play. And it's the same case for Jalen Hurts, who he loses an offensive lineman as well, but the Eagles have been up to this point a top 10 unit. Dallas is not generating pass rush. Micah Parsons on his own did last week in a really good matchup. He generated the most pressure, shout out Penn State, out of any defensive end that we had seen, but last week you saw the bad. Week 1 you saw the good. The highest adjusted completion percentage was Jalen Hurts. Last week the bad, 52%. Now he was still on just a limited 23 attempts, 8.3 yards per attempt, so that was good to see. It was a slower pace game versus the 49ers, but the big thing, in each week he's seen 60 or more rushing yards. He now has 9 carries for 144 yards and a touchdown on the season. But he also has 3 fumbles. And his prop right now is set at 52.5 rushing yards. I have not touched it. I don't really like it. I don't really lean the over or the under at this point. It's not something I want to be taking. I do think that he's going to be right around that number. I do think he will be active with his legs. He is $200 less than Dak Prescott, and I only have him for a half a fantasy point less. Both of these quarterbacks are firmly in play. I slightly prefer Dak Prescott, but I'm going to be trying to get them both in my lineups. On SuperDraft, I have Jalen Hurts right now projected out as a better play than Dak Prescott, and you get a 10% advantage. In terms of what his multiplier is, we'll talk about SuperDraft momentarily if you're not familiar. But yes, right now I would prefer to slightly into Dak Prescott. I kind of want both of these guys, right? I have them both projected as the highest guys in the slate. The problem is we just don't have the value. Can you play them both with a cheaper captain? Definitely. That's going to be something I'll be looking into doing later today. As we slide down now, you start to get to some even more priorities here, which are the wide receivers. I mean, CeeDee Lamb now. Amari Cooper gets hurt last week. He sees some targets, but CeeDee Lamb leads this team now with targets. He already has a 23% red zone target share. Basically, when this team gets to the red zone, if they're passing, they're looking to Amari or CeeDee Lamb. That should make a lot of sense to you, but CeeDee Lamb at 23% red zone target share. Amari Cooper, we can tackle these guys at the same time, a 38.5% red zone target share so far, and that's with just 5 targets last week. Amari is dealing with cracked ribs, he has said. A reporter said, so what do you got, like bruised ribs? He said, no, they're cracked, but like I'm going to be playing football. So he's playing with cracked ribs. So let that soak into your mind. CeeDee Lamb is $800 more expensive. I basically have them looking like similar players tonight. Apparently the pain management and what they're going to be doing for Amari Cooper should be making him okay, but there's always the concern that he will leave the game because he's playing with motherfucking cracked ribs. But even dealing with those cracked ribs last week during the game, then of course they don't get sore. They don't have a couple days to settle in and really start hurting your adrenaline in game. He still led the team with 29 routes, but it was CeeDee Lamb who led the team with 9 catches, 8 receptions on 81 yards. I think they're both going to be steady options for you, but at least know that Amari will be dealing with that injury. And now we get to the opposite side where I do think these guys start to come and play as potentially your best captain options. The main Eagles receivers in Devonta Smith and Jalen Reagor, they just scream out best captain options. And the fact that Devonta Smith is only $1,000 more than Jalen Reagor, it just says, Devonta Smith, put me in the captain spot. I have Devonta Smith for four more fantasy points than Jalen Reagor at this point. Devonta Smith has been dominating so far in the NFL, and don't look at the actual stats. The fact that his quarterback threw for 52% completions last week hurts him. He's getting open left and right against top tier cornerbacks, like getting open, just completely wide open. He looks fantastic out there so far. He's commanded a 27% target share in 15 targets through 2 games, which leads this slate. He'll get Anthony Brown, and he'll get the second-year player Trevion Diggs out of Alabama, former teammate who looks really good right now for the Cowboys through 2 weeks, but this is still a matchup advantage for Devonta Smith. He's played a decent amount out of the slot, but so far he's been dominating on the outside. He is number 6 in the NFL with a 51% share of his team's air yards, and number 2 only behind MVS, which you saw Monday Night Football come through, or Sunday Night Football come through a little bit for MVS, having some receptions, getting the touchdown. Number 2 in unrealized air yards. What does that mean? What does unrealized air yards means? It means he is seeing a ton of air yards, meaning from when the quarterback throws the ball to where the ball lands. That means he's getting a ton of upside down field, and it's just not converting right now, I would assume, because of 52% completion percentage last week for Jalen Hurts. You saw the 7 targets week 1 and the touchdown, that first touchdown to the left side of the field in week 1 where the air yards were completed, but he's still number 2 there. This is a guy just screaming to be a $9,000 player and should be a $9,000 player on the slate, but because of the inaccuracy last week on about 2 to 3 throws downfield, he's not. So take advantage of that. This looks like probably the best captain on the slate. Now, the other best captain option would be the discount on a Jalen Reagor. Jalen Reagor, who's also involved right now, number 2 on the team with 11 targets, tied for a team-high 8 receptions with Devonta Smith. He's played 24% of the time out of the slot. He's getting targets downfield. I mean, last week, Jalen Reagor should have had the big touchdown down the right side of the field, right? It gets called back because he steps out of bounds. Ineligible man back in field. I don't know if you saw that play, but basically, Jalen Reagor should have had what would have amounted out to like a 50-yard touchdown. And if Jalen Reagor's 50-yard touchdown stands up, I mean, if he does that tonight, he's going to be a sure thing as a top tier captain. And if he does that tonight, or if he did that last week, tonight he would be priced as probably an $8,000 player. At the very least, a $7,500 player. So you're getting these discounts. Like we've seen it on paper. Devonta Smith is getting open left and right and getting the deep targets. Looks good. The price isn't adjusted for it. We just saw Jalen Reagor last week getting open downfield, getting the deep targets, and converting for a touchdown, but he barely stepped out of bounds. So these opportunities are there for us. I like both of those Eagles receivers as probably because of what their value presents on a slate with not much value. Because what that price tag presents, cheaper, right? With a slate with not much value, they stand out as top tier captain options. And before we continue to where some of the value lies in the slate, I want to tell you about the props I've taken tonight. And this is the most I've had on a prop this year because I like it a whole lot. So let's get into this over on Prize Picks, the sponsor of the program. This is $500 I haven't played tonight. So I have $500 on this prop. I only have to get 4 out of 5 right to profit. We get 5 out of 5 right. It's even better. Last week I won about $700, $800 on the week 3 main slate over on Prize Picks. So this is what I have so far tonight. Zeke over 2 receptions. I have Zeke for about 3.3. This line is going to move up to 2.5. Get it before it moves up to 2.5 or 3. Over 2 receptions. Cedric Wilson, I have him for about 35 yards. He's at 26.5. We take the over there. It's the overs club tonight, baby. The sign says take the overs. Take the motherfucking overs. Devonta Smith over 54.5 yards. This number should be in the 70s. This number should be 72. You're getting a massive discount on this number right now because of what was not completed to him last week. And same thing for Jalen Reagor. This number should be where Devonta Smith is, 54 in this matchup against the Cowboys, where you expect to throw, where you were trailing, where you have a good matchup, and oh yeah, where you're being targeted 5 to 6 times per game and downfield often. So those are the first 4 props, and then the final prop, and this is nice because you can correlate them all together. You can correlate this stuff together, which is great. I have the over Devonta Smith yards. I have the over Jalen Reagor yards. If those overs are hitting, there's an even greater chance based on correlation that Jalen Hurts is hitting the over 249.5 yards. I have him for the 260s. I take those 5 overs, I pair them up, I put $500 in play. If I get 3 out of 5 right, I get get some of my entry back. 4 out of 5 right, we win money. 5 out of 5 right, we win a whole lot of money. So here you do. You use the code SAL, link down below. You get your first free bet matched up to $100. So your first bet matched up to $100. Use the code SAL down below. Going over on Prize Picks. Why are you not taking advantage of this right now? This is a limited time offer. That code SAL, free. FREE. We spelled it out for you. We just showed you exactly what to take. Win the Dollar Ruskies. Hop into the Patreon Discord and say, hey, here's the win channel. Here's the green slips. Dollar Ruskies are flying from everywhere right now. We're in it. We got $500. The money's where the mouth is. How about you? Use that code SAL. Get them right now. Get them right now. Get them right now. And as we've gone through this, you can see that there's really no value so far. We start to get to the quote-unquote value, but it's not that secure. And this is probably the best value play on the slate right now, and that man's name is Cedric Wilson. I mean, you could argue the kickers, but obviously they lack an upside of like a 20-point game. Like an upside for these kickers is you're really happy with a 10-point game, right? 12-point game. But Cedric Wilson last week was by far the wide receiver 3 with no Michael Gallup. No Michael Gallup yet again this week. Cedric Wilson last week ran 19 routes to just 6 routes for Noah Brown. He played way more snaps than him, but he only saw 2 targets, 2 catches for 20 yards. He operated out of the slot about 76% of the time. I do think on those 19 routes, they should come up a little bit if they're in a game where they get more time. Last week was kind of a weird game, stalled drives. You should expect maybe 24 routes. He played 36 snaps to just Noah Brown's 12 snaps. So 36 snaps to just 19 routes run. You should expect some more routes run coming. Now, he hasn't seen a red zone target yet, but that makes sense. I mean, week 1, he kind of filled in midway through the game when Gallup got hurt. He's not going to be as heavily involved in the red zone as a Zeke, as a Tony Pollard, as we've seen, and of course, Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. But he has been seeing a decent target share so far through 2 weeks, having about 5 targets. He's only $4,000 on this slate. You kind of need either the touchdown or one big reception, like have a 3-reception, 50, 60-yard game, because otherwise, why wouldn't you go to the kickers? And now I'm an advocate for going to the value plays with upside. So the wide receiver 3 in a Cowboys offense with a 27.5 implied total, I'm going to lean towards. And I do have him projected for slightly more than the kickers, so we can talk about that when we get to the kickers. You can see some of these tight ends are here, and it's really a lot of these tight ends. So Blake Jarwin will be in play for me. I'll take Blake Jarwin on the discount over Dalton Schultz. It's an $1,800 discount. We'll get to Schultz when we get to him, but that's a pretty extreme discount. I mean, he led this team for tight ends last week. It was by 1, but he had 16 routes to Dalton Schultz 5. He out-targeted him 4-2. Now, week 1, Dalton Schultz had the 6 targets, but you still saw Blake Jarwin running basically the same routes. These guys basically have a 50-50 usage role. It just comes down to who sees the targets. Last week, it was Blake Jarwin. These guys' price points should basically both be the same, but an $1,800 discount on Blake Jarwin, who's probably the more athletic, maybe not more well-rounded when you take into account blocking, but the more athletic tight end, I'll take that built-in discount on Blake Jarwin. I'll also take a similar built-in discount on Zach Ertz, who, yeah, he is nowhere near as, I would say, in his prime as Dallas Goedert. But you're getting a discount of $4,400. Can I say that again? $4,400 on Zach Ertz. I have Dallas Goedert projected for more, but we need value on this slate. There is no value on this slate, and this is where the value lies. But why is it $4,400? If I look over here right now on my routes run, last week or so far on the season, you have 41 routes run for Dallas Goedert. He's ran 41 routes. Ertz has run 40. They're playing the exact same amount of time out there. Now, Dallas Goedert has led to 7 targets. Ertz is just 4. A 12.5% target share to just 7. But it's only been 2 games. You should expect today 15 to 20 routes out of Zach Ertz and 2 to 4 targets. Again, Dallas Goedert through 2 weeks has only ran 1 more route than Zach Ertz, but for some reason he's $4,400 more expensive. I think Zach Ertz should be around $4,000 on this slate. I think that Dallas Goedert should be around like $5,400, $5,600. I think that would be a lot fairer of a price based on my projections right now. Ertz possesses value tonight. So that will end my priority plays, if you will. And these are the guys that are definitely in a player pool. Basically, they're all in a player pool for me, but not as of extreme plays for me right now. And this can change. We'll be live tonight, by the way, an hour around 5 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. East Coast time. But these can change. It depends on ownership. If Zeke is picking up no ownership because of all the receivers priced around him, well, as a leverage play, I'll probably get to a good amount of Zeke and maybe even in my main lineup. My ownership projections will be over on Patreon, by the way, but we can talk about it on the live stream. Zeke and Tony Pollard are both going to have this great run blocking advantage. The Eagles defense just lost Graham, which is a massive part of that run defense, and they already ranked bottom 10 in the league in run defense. You have Zeke through the first 2 weeks leading the entire NFL in running backs with 68 routes run. He ran 24 routes last week with no Gallup, and he saw 2 targets. His 24 routes were number 3, only behind Amari and CeeDee Lamb. There's upside for Zeke here. The way that Zeke projects out, I do prefer him over Miles Sanders from the Eagles by far. I mean, there's some concerns for Miles Sanders. He has a great matchup here, a positive 49% run blocking advantage against the Cowboys, who rank 25th in tackling, but a little bit better in run defense. You're getting 17.5 opportunities through the first 2 games for Miles Sanders, but the main concern is that you still have Mr. Jalen Hurts back there. And so far, you have Miles Sanders getting 1 red zone attempt to his quarterback Jalen Hurts getting 2. and a rushing touchdown last week. And also Kenny Gainwell, the backup, getting 2 and some rushing touchdowns as well. So although I like Miles Sanders, the price point that he's at $8,000 is a little bit overpriced. He should see 15 to 16 touches in this game, 2 to 4 receptions, 12 carries on the ground. But the fact that Kenny Gainwell is playing 34% of the snaps and used in the red zone, and Jalen Hurts we know is going to be used in the red zone, it takes a little bit of the upside and ceiling for a showdown slate away. I mean, when they're priced this close between Zeke and Miles Sanders, Zeke's role is way better. I know Tony Pollard is getting some steam right now, but Zeke's role is way better. Already 5 red zone touches. Give me Zeke, especially when they're that close. And now you get these number 2 running backs on the team on the screen, and Tony Pollard is massively overpriced, but at least he saw last week 16 touches. Now, Tony Pollard saw 3 receptions for 31 yards, but don't think that's going to hold up. He only ran 7 routes in that game, meaning that he was being targeted on like a 42% clip. The NFL average on target rate is like 15% for wide receivers, let alone running backs. So 7 routes leading to 3 targets is not going to stand out. Zeke Elliott is the main pass-catching running back on this team. Yes, he is the better pass blocker as well, so he stays on the field. But give credit where it's due. Pollard last week, 13 carries, goes over 100 yards, and gets a touchdown. He has that same good matchup as Zeke, but this is a little bit interesting. Like, Tony Pollard is basically, I mean, he's similarly priced to Zeke Elliott. Even though Zeke Elliott is the main guy on this team, he's running the majority of the routes. He's still seeing the team lead in carries right now, and he's being involved more often in the red zone than Tony Pollard. So I do think this is kind of a flash in the pan. I don't think they're transitioning off of their high-paid Zeke Elliott, who's been fine so far, to Pollard. He's going to be involved still, but is it enough to think that this is a 1A, 1B backfield based on this price splitting? No, I mean, based on the snaps that Tony Pollard has played this year, he is still the backup running back. So Tony Pollard's price is a little bit weird. It probably becomes restrictive for me to get to, honestly. $7,600 is a lot. Dallas Goedert is here. I'm fine with Dallas Goedert. I just think that he's like $1,000 overpriced. He stands out right now as probably, let's see where he stands out. He is the 4th most overpriced guy in the slate in terms of my projections. I only have him for like 9 points at this point. I have guys like Cedric Wilson who are way less than him for similar projection. So Goddard has a nice matchup here. He's just overpriced compared to Ertz at this point. He's only seen 7 targets, and to be 7 targets so far for $6,600, he'll have a red zone role, of course, is a little bit pricey. Now, it's not extremely pricey, but the fact that we're price sensitive on a slate that lacks value, it becomes a little harder. He will have a good matchup, though, him and Zach Ertz against Jalen Smith today and some of these linebackers, so keep that in mind. Now, the final value options, they're just overpriced. Like, this is why it's harder to get to these guys. You can see Quez Watkins on the screen. He had that big, like, 90-yard reception, 80-plus yard reception last week, which is kind of padding his stats, if you will. He scored a touchdown week 1, but he's only ran 34 routes so far this year. They're using a lot of 2 tight end approaches. Now, he's the clear wide receiver 3 because outside of him and Devonta Smith and Jalen Reagor, nobody else has seen a target on this team for a wide receiver. But he's had 5 catches for 140 yards on 5 targets. But most of that came last week. Like 75% of that yardage came on 1 play last week. He will be on the field, but he's overpriced because of that big play. He should not be $5,400 for a guy who's going to see 2 to 3 targets in this game. For a good game for Quez Watkins today is like 3 catches for 40 yards. $5,400, that's a little bit overpriced for kicker production. I have Quez Watkins currently projected on Patreon for only like 5.8 points. That is below the kickers right now. That is below the defenses. Obviously, he has a higher ceiling because of that upside like the catch you saw last week, but he's overpriced. Kenny Gainwell is massively overpriced. $5,000 for a backup running back. He is a clear backup running back playing just 34% of the snaps. Now, he is seeing 10.5 opportunities per game. He saw 12 opportunities week 1, but about 4 or 5 of those were in garbage time, but he did see 9 opportunities in a close game last week. Opportunities are touches and targets. He's ran only 15 routes, but seen 6 targets on the year, and he has 2 red zone touches. The touchdowns are skewing his point total up a little bit. So far on the season, he's averaging 9.75 fantasy points per game because of the touchdowns. But again, this is just like Tony Pollard, except this one's worse here because Tony Pollard is at least producing at a high level, seeing like 15 touches in a game like last week. You're getting right now Kenny Gainwell, a clear backup playing just 33% of the snaps. I would like Kenny Gainwell today if he was $3,000, like A.J. Dillon's price point on the main slate last night on the Sunday Night Football slate. But Kenny Gainwell is basically A.J. Dillon in terms of, obviously they're different players. He's a better pass catcher. But in terms of the snaps he's playing, he's basically at this point A.J. Dillon, a clear backup for 30 to 40% of the snaps, yet he's $5,000. He's priced a little bit crazy here in my opinion. Maybe he gets in the end zone. He's had 2 red zone touches, but again, there's no value on the slate. The guys who should be value options are $2,000 more than they should be. So that's Mr. Kenny Gainwell. Dalton Schultz is fine if you want to get there at $4,800. He's basically the exact same guy as Blake Jarwin so far, and Jarwin's cheaper, so I'll take the value there. The kickers are both in play. On a slate like today, I would prefer Cedric Wilson. I would prefer Blake Jarwin to the kickers, but you got to give credit where it's due. Greg Zuerlein is averaging 11 points per game. Jake Elliott's averaging 5.5. I have them both projected for like 8 to 9 fantasy points. They are definitely in play. Do not be shocked to see a kicker or a defense. The defenses are cheap, 3,400 and 3,200. They're projecting out for me for like 6, 5 fantasy points, somewhere in there. Don't be shocked to see one of these guys, one of these positions be in the optimal lineup. And to close it out, we can talk about the only guy who's a punt option, and that's Noah Brown for $200. Noah Brown, though, only has ran 6 routes. Week 1, he ran no routes, but then Michael Gallup gets hurt, and the Cowboys do operate with 4 receivers, but week 2, he only runs 6 routes, plays 12 snaps, sees no targets. So expect Noah Brown tonight to run 4 to 8 routes to see 0 to 1, maybe 2 targets. If Amari gets banged up in game, right, he's got the rib injury, $200 Noah Brown might come in play, but don't be punting here. Don't be saying, oh, this is where the value is, I got to get there. There is a way better chance that Noah Brown scores 2 or less points tonight, which is not going to be in your winning lineup, than he does 6 to 8, which would be in your winning lineup. So that is where we are at on this showdown slate. Now, I will let you know of one final thing, and this is going to be SuperDraft, where yesterday their contest only filled at about 60% for their main slate, which means if you entered a lineup into the Sunday Night Football Showdown, you beat 40% of the field just by entering a lineup. That will never happen anywhere else. There is $8,000 in play tonight. Somebody last night won $8,000 because they only had to beat 60% of the field because these contests aren't filling. Take advantage of this before they fill. Now, I'm recording this in the morning, so obviously this contest just opened, but expect, and we can look at it on the live stream, expect this contest to fill at like 75, 80%, meaning that by entering a lineup, you will beat a quarter of the field. That simple. That will not happen ever on DraftKings because their marketing, their $1 billion budget fills all their contests. Right now, they got guys like me, Joe Schmoes like me, trying to fill these contests for them as a partner. So check it out. If you want a free $20 over on SuperDraft, the best spot that you'll have to actually win money tonight in a DFS contest because the contest won't fill. You have less competition for the same amount of money. It's like going to the grocery store and having the exact same bottle of ketchup in front of you. Exact same. No difference in the ingredients, no difference in the label. 2 Heinz bottles of ketchups, but you pay for the one that's $1.50 more for hell no reason. No fucking reason at all. So if you want $20 to play with, you could use the code SAL when you sign up on SuperDraft. $20. Great contest overall. We'll be playing there, talking more about it later today. So there you go. There's your schmacks for the day. We're 30 plus grand richer. We had a lovely Sunday. Let's bring it into Monday right now. The Packers win. The second place finish. Let's bring it into Monday tonight. Let's go right here. The best day of the week is Monday. Let's start off with a big one. A great football game tonight. I love football. I love all of you. Like and subscribe before you go. Come and join the Patreon community. A record high 820 plus, 830 plus people in the Discord now. Get up on Patreon. Come join the community. Support the sponsors of the show. And peace out, gang. Enjoy your motherfucking day.